Good evening, Vancouver, and welcome back to Canucks After Dark, March 6th edition. Both of us from our non-normal spaces. We are coming to you right after a Canucks win over the Nashville Predators, and a pretty bad week for the Tank, and a pretty interesting week overall for this NHL hockey team. But as always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
Parker, can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you and see you.
Okay, I can hear you and see you well. So I'll tell everyone where I am. Then if you want, you can divulge where you are. I'm happy we can do a show. Just like the Canucks game started late, we are starting late. I was there. I was there with Lucas. Had a great time with him. Saw Canucks win. I'm not sure what I want anymore because that was pretty darn entertaining, actually. And I'm at my office because if you waited for me to get home, I think you'd probably be sleeping already. So all in all, things are good. Kids crushed it at a bowling tournament over the weekend, and we got to spend more money to go to a national tournament, but I'll worry about that later. Life is good. Thank you for asking, and I hope life is good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on vacation here in sunny, not super warm California, but it is nice to be on a little bit of a vacation. And we have NHL center ice down here, so we do have all the hockey and a couple of good hockey, like fun hockey games to actually watch, regardless of the result, regardless of what you're cheering for. That game against the Leafs was actually like a really fun, entertaining game before the two shorthanded goals. And this one sort of fit that same bill. So at least, a bit of a plus side for the people on Team Tank, myself included. A pretty decent week for the Canucks on the ice. And then we obviously have some off ice stuff to talk about as well.
Speaking of decent, Fangirl says, "I love your microphone. You look like you're gonna bust out a rhyme or something, or start,
Yeah, that's awesome. The last thing you should expect.
By the way, not something we don't expect. Lucas, thank you. I spent the night with him. That didn't sound right. I spent the game with him. Lucas, $7 donation. That was awesome. What a game. Yes, Lucas is on the Jumbotron. Thanks for no problem. Looking forward to a great show tonight. Yes, Parker and me as well. By the way, Lucas was on the Jumbotron for extended like 20 seconds. And because I was beside him, you just see my head like in the corner, but he was giving it. And I credit Lucas for the Canucks inspired performance in overtime in the shootout. Let's put it out there right now.
Well, that's awesome. Glad you guys had a good, fun experience. It was huddled up on the couch with some pizza and bit of a different vibe, but
there you go.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun one. As always, this show, just so everyone knows, we already 60 people in here that were waiting very patiently, and we're sorry for the delay, but Clay was at the game. There's overtime. There was a shootout. It's a mess, right? So we're gonna probably cut this one a little bit short, maybe around 11:30, maybe just after, because I'm barely keeping it together as is. And then we can we obviously have a bunch of stuff to get into, right? We've got the Hronek trade, or Hronek. I always say Hronek as if it's like Jeremy Hronek, but the Filip Hronek trade. We've got the Luke Schenn trade that we haven't talked about yet. That happened on Tuesday. And then the last three Canucks games to talk about as well, and maybe just some other general trade deadline thoughts, because there was a bunch of stuff that happened around the league in the past week or so.
Wow. So this is probably the wrong show to cut short, but we don't want to be going past 11:30 too far. So
yeah, we'll see how we do. I can see if I can power through.
Okay. I'll just sleep here and I'll wake up tomorrow morning. My workmates will come to the office, say, hey, and I'll be wearing this jersey. So.
Perfect. Where do you want to start? Do we want to start with the games, or do we want to start with the trade and everything else that happened this week?
I think actually, because we're coming off a game, we might as well go a quick post game, this game, go backwards quickly, go Toronto, barely Minnesota, and then go to trade deadline. I think that makes the most sense.
I think so. Yeah, and that Minnesota game is not going to take up any time. I don't think.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't see it.
Kaprizov is good. There, we're done. Yeah.
Exactly. So this game tonight, Canucks Predators, a game that coming into the game odds wise dead even. At least when it was Demko that was rumored to start, and then Colin Delia, I guess, was sick. Seelovs gets the emergency call up and actually gets the start, which I thought was pretty interesting. First period starts out pretty strong. You get Elias Pettersson with probably the best wrist shot he's ever taken. It was like on TV, you couldn't tell it went in, but like you knew it went in, right? It was like,
same live, man. Same live. It was right in front of me, and it was so good. I thought it hit the post. I actually thought it might have hit the goalie even. Like it was that fast.
Yeah, it literally hit the top corner post,
Yeah.
rung around the entire back bar and kicked out. Just a sick shot. It's his 300th point. It's his 30th goal of the year. And coming off of the season he had last year and how dreadful the first half was, I mean, he's an absolute phenom, right? I mean, he's on pace to score 40 this year. He's got a ton of points. He's could be a Selke candidate if the Canucks were any good. Pettersson is just having a absolute insane season.
Yeah, and even that nice pass from Kuzmenko, he a lot of players would rush that or not have the confidence, but he held it for that split second, waited for PD to get into position, and it was a bullet of a pass through the seam, and yeah, the shot, and no doubter. Pretty cool. So on the game after, Hughes gets what is the fastest defenseman ever to 200 assists, then PD has his 300th point. That's two pretty cool milestones back to back.
Yeah, two very, very good players. And then it was like 37 seconds later or something like that. I think maybe even less than that.
Yeah, 27. They're announcing the goal when they score. I hate those.
Yeah, that's not a good feeling. Colton Sissons the other way. I don't really remember this goal.
This one, oh shoot, I can't remember
either. Oh, that was it the one that sort of had a weird bounce. Everyone was looking the wrong way, and he just skated out and had a wide open net with the puck in the crease.
No, that was actually the first Evangelista goal, actually. Oh, no, you're right. No, right. You're right. It was this one because I think Myers thought it was going to be offside. That's right. I mean, I thought it was going to be icing, so he slowed down and he got mad after the yes.
Yeah, it was like a 50-50 icing. They didn't call it. And he gave up on it.
Fun fact, the couple sitting in front of Lucas and me were given tickets by Patty O'Neill, the trainer, but they are really good friends, or they're like the uncle and aunt of Sissons, which is pretty cool. So they're waving at him all game. They're happy for him. It's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
And then we get a puck goals and tip with about 9 minutes to go. So the Canucks go into the second period up a goal. Fairly even period. It felt like shots were 10-8. Nothing too crazy. Second period, not much happens. Anything of note?
No. Was that the fight? Was that the JT Miller fight?
It might have been the JT Miller fight.
Yeah, so that Miller
makes sense because they'd be going that way, I think.
Yeah, because they're behind the. Whose net were they behind now?
I don't remember.
Me neither. All I know, I'm just looking at it real quick. The penalties. Yes, it was the JT Miller fight. So when I saw it happen, and that was also my end of the rink, Parker, I thought that Smith was just wailing on him for no reason, but then I saw that Miller actually initiated with a quick shot.
Yeah, and it looked like they mentioned on the broadcast, it looked like sort of retaliatory for what Cole Smith had done the previous play.
Okay, I did not know that
in their shifts. I think on some, I don't remember who it was on, but there was a bit of a weird shot given, and Miller sort of took a number, and I went after him.
Right. Okay, so yeah, it was good to see. I think Miller ate a couple, but at least he ended up on top at the end.
Yeah, he landed the big ones. That's what counts.
But otherwise, you're right. Not a lot going on in that period.
Yeah, and then we go third period. We have Dakota Joshua getting his 9th goal of the year. Kind of surprising. I mean, I think he had a game early in the season that he had 2, and he had like 3 goals in 3 games or something like that, which obviously helps. But he's up to 9.
Sweet feet from your favorite player. Sweet feet from your favorite player. Niels
Yes. Yeah. Niels Amon has been looking pretty good these last couple of games, I will say. Good for him. Yes. I'm glad to see that. And then Nashville's Luke Evangelista gets his first career goal. And it wouldn't even be his last goal of the game because he tied it with, 3 minutes to go ish.
And I'm just watching that one. He kind of crossed the crease, and should someone have taken him? I don't know. That was weird.
Yeah, I don't remember it exactly.
Yeah, scramble play.
But yeah. Just a bit of a mess. But yeah, Evangelista gets his second of the game, which is kind of on brand for the Canucks, giving up career milestones or first career goals to players.
Very generous.
Overtime comes and goes. Nothing too special. Canucks were the better team in overtime. I think shots were like 4-0, right? Yeah. Canucks had shot him 4-0 in overtime, had all the play. And then we go to a shootout, and Seelovs is perfect.
I was pretty impressed. He's quick. He covers up the bottom of the net. Yeah, I think weren't all three saves. I know the first one he was sprawled out. I can't remember the other two. But yeah, he's good. Bottom of the net,
and
really
he
good.
had one really good, I think, third period save, or maybe OT save on. No, I think it was third period on Duchesne.
Yes.
Sliding to his glove side. That was really good as well.
I think he's 3-2 now, right? Does that sound right? I think he was 2-2 when he got sent back down. So then he's 3-2.
That sounds plausible. I don't know.
And then Kuzmenko, he always shoots to the goalie's left side, his right side. He likes that quick snapshot. But obviously UC Star was a very good goalie. And then JT Miller's attempt wasn't, I can't remember, but PD's was nice. PD's was really
Miller's
nice.
almost snuck through. Miller,
oh, that's right.
His classic sort of cut across, and Saros had to panic a little bit. But and they put Evangelista in there for the shootout, which you have to do. And then Pettersson just beats him 5-hole.
Yep, it was nice. It was beautiful. That all the goals and fights were on our side, Parker. I was pretty lucky, actually.
That is the best when everything happens on your side of the rink.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, it was good. It was good. Any other takeaways? Did you even know who Luke Evangelista was before tonight?
Sure didn't.
Me neither. A couple people mentioning in the chat that Besser had 3 blocked shots, which is pretty good.
That's nice.
Yeah, Joshua and Miller 7 hits each. Dries and DiGiuseppe 5 hits each, and then Burrows 5 hits. So that's a lot of hits. 42 hits, man. 42.
That is a lot of hits. 42 to 19. 19 shots to 9. 19 shots blocked to 9. Canucks were making their presence felt tonight. It was a pretty even hockey game, exactly as advertised. Also a good night on the out of town scoreboard, at least to make up for the win, as Chicago got the win and San Jose got the win in OT with a nice little
your tweets. Those were
hurdle
funny,
tying it late. Again, we have center ice here, so I've just been flipping between all the tank games the last couple of days in the evening when it gets a little too chilly to be outside. So
love it.
Been keeping track, and unfortunately the Canucks have been picking up points as well for the Bedard watch, but fun, pretty fun hockey game.
As I was racing here, Parker, from the arena, not speeding, but racing, if that makes sense, getting here efficiently, they were talking in the postgame Sportsnet 650 how obviously we've talked about how our defense is Hughes, Myers, and a bunch of other guys, Burrows, Breezeball, Juleson, and Wolanin on tonight's. And they talk about how the first half of the first period, the 4 guys, especially the non-regulars, were quite shaky. But then they got better as the game went on, except for Breezeball's muffin up the gut for the tying goal. I think he was trying to feed Kratz. I don't know what he was doing. Was he trying to feed someone? Yeah, I think so. And he
must have, but it didn't seem very great to me. It wasn't as bad as Cody Glass's giveaway in the first.
Yeah,
that was just right on the tape of JT Miller in the slot, but still not ideal.
Yeah. So overall, say what you want. We're smart enough to realize that every win, this game beating Toronto, it hurts our chances, so to speak. But when you're in the arena and you're in the middle of overtime and shootout, like I don't know. There's a lot of people actively cheering for them to lose once you get to that point. But so it was an entertaining game at the Raj overall.
Excellent. Let's go back in time 2 days. Saturday, Hockey Night in Canada, 4 p.m. start against the Maple Leafs. Probably one of the most entertaining games of the season. And again, barring the result, it was just like fun hockey. The Leafs were the better team for a lot early, and the Canucks battled back and got some bounces. But it genuinely had like a very good vibe to it, some good energy.
I know, Parker, I was watching my kids bowl that day, so I did not see the game. Did you watch it live from Holiday even?
I did. Yes. Yeah. That was appointment viewing.
Good.
Here.
Did Luke Schenn play? Not he's not a dirty player, but did he play aggressively? I heard. Did he lay out a couple of hits or try to?
He started pretty aggressively. Yeah. He threw first shift. I think he was credited with 2 or 3 hits on the first shift.
Wow.
He had a big hit on JT Miller early and someone else early. But yeah, he was trying to make his presence felt. The thing is, he ended the game with 3 shifts. So I think he had 2 on the first shift, or 3. He ended the game with 3 hits. I think he had 2 of those on the first shift.
Right.
But yeah, he started out pretty aggressively. Yeah, Canucks got outplayed pretty handily. I mean, shots were 14-5 in the first period,
Wow.
but no goals. Demko was fantastic.
Yeah.
You have Andrei Kuzmenko in the second, getting his 29th of the season, so staying right on pace with Pettersson.
Wow.
And that was on the power play. I don't remember. What's the goals exactly. That one was a tip. That Kuzmenko goal. I remember that
Okay.
for sure because there
Yeah.
was a lot of talk about how his shooting percentage is like 27%. But he tips a lot of pucks in, and those don't usually get credited as shots for the player that tips it unless it goes in.
Yes.
Um, so Canucks have a lead after one. Tavares opens the scoring with a power play goal for the Leafs in the third. So we are tied at a goal apiece. And then, yeah, we get um, a Phil DiGiuseppe high sticking penalty. And this is like right after Besser got high stick. Or was it Besser? Someone got high sticked and was cut up pretty good.
Okay.
Um, and they didn't get called. They got missed. And
Mm.
then Canucks go the other way, and then they take a high sticking penalty. It's DiGiuseppe. And this the Leafs just went in too deep and got greedy, and the Canucks just capitalized on it. You have an Elias Pettersson goal where he sort of gets sprung and sort of
Yeah.
takes the goaltender out as he scores, and then you
Yeah. It
have
was nice.
JT Miller in on a little 2-on-1, and yeah, it's or I guess 2-0. Sorry, I don't. It's hard to remember these. They're both very similar goals. But yeah, basically 2 goals in 45 seconds or so, shorthanded, was just it took the wind completely out of the sails of the Maple Leafs.
Oh yeah, the PD one was a 2-on-1 that turned into 2-on-0 because Riley was on the ice, and
Right.
PD kind of used Miller as his decoy. And you're right. And then the Miller one was a beautiful pass from Pettersson from his own end, and that was the one where it was basically a 1-on-0, a breakaway. Yeah, yeah, but
Right.
both really nice. Yeah, and crazy. And I'm sitting there at the bowling alley, and I'm getting all the, not a lot, but a few texts and seeing the tweets of, oh my gosh, this is great, this is amazing, 2 shorties and one, and I couldn't fathom it. I mean, you mean we didn't give up 2 power play goals and no 2 shorties in 40 seconds?
Yep.
Crazy.
Yep. It was very entertaining. It was just stunned. Like all the Leafs fans they'd cut to were just stunned, which was very entertaining. And then 5 minutes later, the Canucks put it away, and it was the fourth line, or not.
It's
I
your
guess it's
boy.
not really the fourth line. It's a weird line, right? Because
Yeah,
it was Besser, DiGiuseppe, and Amon on the ice.
yeah,
Basically, Phil DiGiuseppe makes a beautiful play to steal the puck,
yeah.
plays it over to Besser. Besser with a beautiful pass across the ice to Niels Amon, and Niels Amon has his third of the year. And Brock Besser, who has been not great, has 41 points now this year because
Wow.
he has 29 assists, right? He's becoming more of a playmaker to make up for, the shot that he maybe doesn't have much of anymore,
Yeah, yeah.
shooting at 10%. But yeah, he's been making passes, and that was one of his best. And the Canucks had a 4-1 lead at that point, and it was basically over.
I presume so a game like this, again, we just kind of talked about this 5 minutes ago. Were you happy that the Canucks destroyed the Leafs, or were you reserved in your enthusiasm?
I was happy in the way it happened.
Yeah.
I sort of went into this game as like, um, for the better of the team in the future, it's probably best if they lose this game. However, if they are going to pick one to win, this is the one to win, right?
In
That's
front of a
always sort of my mindset.
national
When,
audience. Yeah.
like, I don't care that much if they lose to Nashville. I don't care if they lose to Minnesota. That doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't hurt, right? I don't know anyone that cheers for those teams, so I'm not gonna get any flack or whatever.
Mhm.
But the Leafs, they're a fun team to beat,
Oh
and
yeah.
especially when it is a fun hockey game with a fun atmosphere, and the method in which they did it with those 2 shorthanded goals, just basically saying, "Yeah, you had a chance to take the lead, and we just took the game away."
Mhm.
It was a very fun game. So I was feeling pretty good.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. And you know what's interesting? 20 minutes in the show, we've crested over 100 viewers, and it's 10 after 11. So my theory is, no matter what time we start, 20 minutes in, we reach our peaks. Whether it's 10 o'clock, 10:45, like it's weird.
Apparently, I was worried you were going to say later. It seems to be better for us, and I
Well, I would
can't do
love
that.
that, but
Uh, But yeah, no, Mondays seem to be our good time.
Yeah. I'll talk to you off air, but next week's Gail's birthday. So that doesn't mean the world stops, but we'll figure something out.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make a post or something on our page. I probably have hockey next week too, so we'll figure something out.
Okay. So we may have to move to Tuesday next week. Okay. We'll figure
Yeah.
that out. Yeah. Okay.
Either way, Canucks
Yeah.
played one more game
Yeah.
earlier this week. It was against the Wild. They lost 2-1. I didn't see it.
I was there and I can't remember it, honestly. I know Kaprizov's really good and he had many chances to get a hat trick. JT Miller horse called him when the net was empty to thwart his hat trick. Kaprizov's so good. He's 39 goals.
Fantastic hockey player.
Yeah.
That contract's already a bargain at $8 million a year.
Yeah, that game was fine. The you look at the stats and the effort. You certainly can't blame the Canucks' effort since Rick Tocchet has taken over. I'm not saying that's a Boudreaux thing, but so they got outshot actually quite badly, 36-22, but they killed off 5. That's what I remember. They killed off 5 wild penalties, including power plays, including a 5-on-3. So I heard a stat that coming in tonight's game, they were 16 out of the last 18 successful. So now it's 17 of the last 19. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Still at 68% or whatever, but
yeah, it's not great, but I think they're now no longer like going to be the worst of all time.
Of all time, yes.
Yeah.
Just recent memory.
Nice to not be the worst of all time.
Exactly.
Something.
All right. Not bad. So 2 out of 3.
Yeah. Which isn't, I mean, the one saving grace is where the Canucks going to go the rest of the year without winning 2 games in a row. I mean, maybe, but the Canucks haven't won. I think that's the stat was they hadn't won 2 games in a row since December.
Right.
Which is absurd, right? That's over 2 months that they haven't won back-to-back games because they've just been bad, right? Yeah. They basically the last 8 games they had gone win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So they get 2 wins in a row. It hurts the standings. If we take a look at the standings, Canucks are now 7th worst in the league, and they have leapfrogged Montreal after that win tonight.
Yeah.
So taking them from 6th to 7th. So 1 point ahead of Montreal. They're only 2 points back of Philly, 2 points back of St. Louis. Those are really the only 2 in reach.
Right.
And then below them, Montreal again, 1 point back. Arizona 5, Anaheim 7. So there's starting to be a bit of a gap there. San Jose 7, Chicago 8, and Columbus a ton, 11 it looks like. So, it's starting to get much less realistic unless they really go on a hard skid here to fall much further than maybe 6th, maybe 5th. Yeah. But those are just as likely as moving up to 8th.
It's interesting, Parker, you mentioned lines. Right. You mentioned Philly and St. Louis as teams that were right behind. We've beaten those 2 teams in the past 8 games. The Canucks are actually they're I'm just looking at they're 5-2-1 in their last 8, including 3 of their last 4, right? Because Dallas they beat, then they lost to Minnesota, then they rattled off the last 2. So they've won 3 out of the last 4, or you could say 4 out of the last 6, or 5 out of the last 8, which is and then 11 points in those 8 games, 11 out of 16. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, great timing, a lot of teams haven't been doing a great job of tanking, right? Most of these teams have been like winning 5 or 4 or 5 every 10 games. Big things to look at, though. Again, the Canucks' strength of schedule is pretty weak.
Yes.
Right? They play Arizona twice. They play Chicago twice.
Great.
Before the end of the year. They play Anaheim twice before the end of the year, starting with the game on Wednesday. No, they play Anaheim 3 times still this season. Like that's a big swing, right? Let's say if Anaheim, it won't happen, but Anaheim goes 3-0 against the Canucks in those games, and then that's a 1 point difference, right?
Right.
But if the Canucks win all 3 of those games, then it's over. You're not getting much. You're not going down very far. So, there's some, and Bruce sort of said it when he got, let go. That the Canucks, looking at the schedule, I understand why now was the time I was let go, because it's going to look pretty good on the new coach with the strength of schedule. I mean, the Canucks had, as of I think about 2 weeks ago, the worst strength of schedule remaining in the NHL. Wow. That doesn't mean nothing, right? You when you're playing teams that are beatable for you, like Nashville, right? A pretty even opponent, especially when you're factoring that the Canucks are on home ice. they're going to win those games half the time, and it's going to hurt.
And you and I have said that we think the Canucks are going to wind up sixth worst at 27th or seventh worst at 26, probably in there. There's no way. Yeah, you just outlined it very well. There's no way they're going to be as bad as Arizona, Anaheim, Columbus, Columbus, Chicago, or San Jose, and they're going to be battling Montreal and Philly for that 6th, 7th, 8th worst spot now.
Yeah.
Yep. So, okay. So, Canucks fans, be ready for it without the actual lottery balls being picked. We keep hearing about this top 5 of whatever order you want to put in under Bedard, and then Michkov, Carlson, Fantilli, and I'm missing one. I always say the top 5, and I can never think of the 5th guy. Yeah. I heard there's 5 really good guys, and there's some other really good ones too, but I keep hearing the big 5, but how come I can only name 4 of them? Okay. Well, I'll get better for next time.
No worries. We should probably go to the big news of the week.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the trade that happened. When was that? That was Wednesday, March 1st. And that was a bit of a surprise. Not if you go with what they've said, management has said, but if you had gone by their recent actions of, getting rid of some players for some draft picks, they take one of those draft picks, the one that they used to acquire Bo Horvat, or get rid of Bo Horvat. They got for him, and they turn around and flip it to the Detroit Red Wings alongside a 2nd-round pick in return for Filip Hronek and a 4th-round pick. 4th-round pick I don't care about. 2nd I do a bit, because that's going to be probably a pick in the high 30s, which you can still find some players in. I mean, your initial thoughts. You see this come down.
Yeah, I was all over the place, because when I actually didn't know a lot about Hronek, to be honest with you. I didn't. I knew he was okay, but I didn't know much about him. Then when I watched highlights, I'm like, man, this guy's got a bomb of a shot. This guy's good. This guy could be the right. I love it. The contract, 25 years old, still got 1 more year before he's an RFA, not even a UFA. So that part lines up nicely. But then, of course, we have to talk about the what we gave up to get him, and the fact that it flew in the face of all the other good moves they're making. Stillman out, for Bloom, and then Kraft's out, all these things. And I get that you have to give up quality to get quality. So I'm kind of one of those, Parker, where I didn't mind it. Then I kind of got swayed by a lot of the people online that, this is bad. And then I said, then I have to do a vlog saying, okay, I'm not saying that I disagree with you, but what I'm saying is this is why the Canucks made the trade. And the Canucks made this trade because they think this could be their right-hand shot guy for years to come.
Yeah. And when you break it down, you look at the player they're getting, and you can look at it as, okay, well, they're getting a player who's who's playing very well. He's a 25-year-old right shot D-man. He's the partner for Quinn Hughes. That's not Luke Shen, right? The partner for Quinn Hughes. That's going to be the partner for years to come. And that is a player that the Canucks need to have, right? Straight up. They need that guy.
Yes.
And then you can also look at it as, well, he's having a career year. Who knows if he regresses back to more of what he was last year. His second half of the season stats haven't been that good, although that has been since he started playing with Ben Sherratt, which you can look at that game that he started playing with Ben Sherratt and see the tail off. So that's probably not helping. And you say, he's an RFA next year, but you know what that means? That means that he's going to go from making whatever it is he makes now, $4 million, I think, to, maybe 6, maybe 7, maybe more. Yeah. Right. And now for a team that's already capped out, that's 26th in the NHL, that gets a little scary, because they already are above the cap for next year, effectively. Right. They don't have money to spend. So they are going to have their work cut out for them over the offseason. So the player, if he is who the Canucks think he is, and if he is Quinn Hughes' right D partner for years to come, that's fantastic. And if he is that player, well, I mean, when he's 32, they can trade him probably for a 1st-round pick, right? Like he's one of those typical players that ideally you're not losing too much in the long run. However, this is a team that has never drafted many players. Like they've always had fewer draft picks than you start with.
Yeah.
And I think the real problem is, one, it's the same thing that, it's trading a first round pick for a player and hoping it works out, right? Whether it's McCann for Goodbranson, whether it's, very similar, obviously much different style of player, but, a high touted pick / prospect for, a 25-ish-year-old defenseman, or for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, which was a first for Garland, basically. And now this one, it's more of the same, and every time we've done it before, it hasn't worked. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is you look at what other teams are doing, right? This has been the busiest trade deadline week in a long time. And if you go to the Arizona Coyotes cap friendly page and you see that they have 2 first-round picks this year, 4 third-round picks this year, 2 fifths, 2 sixths. You go to next year, they have 1 first, but they have 4 seconds, 3 thirds. And the year after, in 2025, they have 1 first and 4 seconds and 2 thirds. And you can do the same thing with a team like Chicago, where you see that they have 2 firsts this year, 2 firsts next year, 2 firsts in 2025, 4 second-round picks this year, 2 seconds next year, 2 seconds in 2025, 2 thirds this year, 2 thirds next year. Like they have accumulated so many picks for this retool that they're undergoing / rebuild, that the Canucks are so adamant against doing, that you kind of look and be like, wow, that might be fun, right? To see what that could turn into. And it could miss. Everything could miss. They could whiff on every single one of those picks. It's possible, but it's also possible that Filip Hronek turns back into a 35-point defenseman that should be a number 4, not a number 2, right? It is theoretically possible, because that's what he was 2 years ago. And last year he was, sort of in the middle of where he was 2 years ago, where he is now. So maybe he is just developing really well this last year, or maybe it's a one-off. We don't know. There's always risk no matter what.
You make such a good point about the quantity and quality, quite frankly, of the draft picks, because before the Hronek trade, we were bragging that we had 7 picks in the first 4 rounds, 2 first rounders, 1 second, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, 7 in the first 4. Then after that trade, where we're trading away a first and a second and get a third back, now we're looking at only 6 in the 4, but the split now is 1-1
shift
2-2. Yeah, exactly. No, sorry, 1-0 3-2. Yeah, so that's a big difference. It's a big difference to have 2 first rounders and a second, now to only have 1 first rounder.
Yeah, and the other big thing is, when we're talking about, when everyone is talking about this being the most talented deep draft in a long time, right? That makes it hurt all that much more, right? It's like, yeah, they still have their first round pick, but I mean, wouldn't it be nice to have a bunch more, right? To have a couple more, theoretically. I mean, you look back to some of those more historic drafts, right? I think 2005 is the one that everyone looks at, right? Where it's just stacked all the way down, and you're getting players late in the first and into the second that are, absolute star players. If this is a draft like that, when we're talking about that Islanders pick that gets moved, we're talking about right now, that's what, around the 17 range, that draft pick. That's pretty important. And the second round pick's nothing to scoff at either, right? Because that pick's going to be, 39, 40th overall.
Yes.
Where you might get you might get a player who plays 200 games. You might get a player who plays 1,200 games, right? And again, the odds aren't that high for that. But guess what? If you have more shots at it, you're going to hit more often than if you didn't. So that's why it hurts. And I still see why they did it. I don't hate the move, but I also don't love it.
Yeah, you're right. And not only, as you said, the more lottery tickets and the more shots in the dark, but you could draft picks are currency. So they are trade chips. They are anything. The more you have, the better you can use them to do something different. And this was the year where, as you said, in such a deep draft, the Canucks could, even if they don't make their own picks, they package these two to move up a little bit, or they package these three to get another one, whatever they wanted to do. And they simply have less flexibility now.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, like we said, it doesn't even really loop in the cap part of it, right? That's sort of the third component is, you look at their cap commitment for next season, and let's see if I can have it right here. The Canucks are projected for next season, as it stands right now, and that's with Kravtsov as an RFA. That's with basically everyone who's not signed now not being signed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Canucks are projected to have under $1 million in cap space next year.
What
with 29 contracts signed. They have a cap hit already set up at $82.555 million. So they have under $950,000 of cap space next year. Like, that can't stay that way, right? You have to find a way to get rid of, like, the last year, that Tyler Myers contract, right? They have 3 defensemen under contract next year.
Mm-hmm.
They have Hughes, Myers, and Hronek, and I guess OEL. I didn't count him, but he's listed under IR here.
Right.
So I didn't see him. But that's with Ethan Bear as an RFA, right? They probably want to keep that guy. He's been pretty good. And then again, you still have a couple more defensemen you have to sign. And obviously Kravtsov, you probably want to keep him after you traded for him. And it's they have some work to do.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned the wingers, Parker, because let's presume Pearson does come back to play. You have basically 9 wingers that are technically battling for 6 spots. So the top 3 lines. I'm not talking about centers, just the wingers itself. So that's why people were hoping for a Besser move or a Garland move, because Besser, Garland, Kuzmenko, Podkolzin, Kravtsov, Beauvillier, Pearson. So there's 7 already. I must be missing a couple. Yeah, Hoglander's 8.
Yeah. And they're all making decent chunks of money, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, even a guy like Villiers on the low end of that, but like Garland makes 5, Besser makes almost 7.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So, I think I've said it here. I know I've said it on my own show, Parker. I whether you call it reserving judgment or not rushing to judgment, I did want to see what this management did after a full year, including now for them it will be 2 trade deadlines, 2 free agent classes, and two entry drafts. And I'm not trying to give them a pass. I'm just trying to say I want to see, because who knows, maybe by when you walk into the training camp next summer, this team looks vastly different with a buyout here, a trade there. So I thought they were doing great to the trade deadline. And the Hronek one's a bit of speed bump. To me, it's not the biggest fall ever, but it was a bit of a bump for sure.
And one thing I said on my video was, it's as the first thing I said is you can make all these small good moves, right?
Yes.
Getting Josh Bloom, trading Luke Shen for a third, picking up Kravtsov for Will Lockwood, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these small incremental moves that make your team marginally better. You do that enough times, you have a good team, but it only takes one larger move to completely offset that and more, right?
Right. Yes.
Like those were minor moves that are just like, yep, free small win, right? That's great. But this one has the potential to really hurt, right? Like the Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Connor Garland trade did, which I said right off the bat, and we both did that. Like this screams, panic, and they're trying to make a big splash, and most likely it's not going to work. Well, it hasn't, and this is one of those ones where like we better hope this guy's a good hockey player, but also doesn't cost the team $8 million a year if he puts up 65 points next year, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird balance that the Canucks have now put themselves in with the cap the way it is.
So defense, they need more. Forwards, they have too many. Goaltenders, that might be the only one that might be straightforward a little bit. You have Demko for 3 more years after this. Silov's probably 1 more year in Abbotsford as well as he's playing now. You have Martin under contract for 1 more year. We'll see how much confidence they have in him, and maybe they bring in 1 more guy to battle to make it like a 5-horse. I don't know what you call it.
It seems, I feel like they're probably bringing in the veteran backup for next year.
Who's even older? Yeah,
I mean, they want to make the playoffs next year, right? They want, and I mean, sure, like that'd be fun. I'd love that. And look, if Thatcher Demko's healthy the whole year, you have Elias Pettersson putting up 90 points. You have Quinn Hughes probably putting up 75 points, right? JT Miller has been playing much better the last few weeks than he was earlier in the season. You get good years at all those guys. You get Filip Hronek playing in there. This is a team that could be third or fourth in the Pacific next year, right? Sort of where we thought the Canucks would be this year.
Yeah.
But that would require, you're wanting a 915 from Thatcher Demko, right?
Yeah.
It's a team that's capable of doing. I'm not saying they will. I don't think they will. But, they might have a 35% chance coming into the year of making the playoffs. And that seems to be what this team is pushing for, which, as we've always said, that shouldn't be the end goal, right? The end goal is Stanley Cup, not 4 playoff games.
And I know you've listened. I don't know if you still do, Parker. I know you've listened to Vancast before. We know a lot about Thomas Drance's work, Farhan Lalji's work, but in the most recent Vancast, the second one of the top 5 podcasts out there after Canucks After Dark, they did say Thomas Drance actually and Farhan Lalji did, and even Harm Dial did say that they would not be surprised if the Canucks were a playoff team next year. They didn't say they will be, but they also didn't flat out say there's no way this team won't be, because yes, a healthy Demko, and there are really good players on here. PD Hughes. Now they want Hronek to be in that, and Miller and Kuzmenko, but is there enough around them? And that's always the problem. That's why you and I were predicting them to finish 3rd or 4th, and they're only at 6th because there's 2 teams even worse than them in our division.
Yeah. I mean, you look at some of these other teams that are sort of in the hunt, right? Like if the Canucks had a season like the Sens did this year, next year, right?
Yeah.
And like right now, the Sens are 3 points out of a playoff spot and in the mix, and they go out and they get Chikrin and they have a chance at least of getting in, right? Or like Detroit has done this year, or Seattle this year, right? The Canucks could, Winnipeg even, right? Winnipeg was sort of on the tail end of their push, and they get a new coach and they've been much better since getting rid of Maurice. So yeah, the Canucks could very reasonably be one of those teams next year. The problem is they're not going to be the Boston next year, right? They're not going to be Boston. They're not going to be Tampa. They're not going to be Toronto. They're not going to be, Vegas. They're just not. So it means, there's only a few spots left after that where all these other teams are competing for, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the conference. When, there's going to be the 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 that all miss, right? So it's, they definitely could make the playoffs next year. I just think, it's going to be by the skin of their teeth.
Yes. And then for what? To get bounced in the first round. And there's a lot of people in the chat that are pretty angry, not at us, Parker, but they're angry that Rutherford and Alvin think that the Canucks could be close to a playoff spot, because obviously that prohibits them from entering to a full rebuild. Now, there's the argument then, well, Quinn Hughes has flat out said, and as we would expect, that he doesn't want to be around for rebuild. You're trying to show Petey, who could sign an extension this summer, that we are building a winner here. So it's not as easy to say as Ackley wants to win. Of course he wants to win, but I think there's many layers, but that's why it's so frustrating. It can be convoluted, and that's why there's such a diverse, varied opinion among Canucks fans, and we're seeing it in the chat too. I know there's people like Japan 4 and Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's in the chat. That's weird. Don't beat us up, but they're I can see it, and I understand it. I wouldn't use the same language they're using, but I understand it for sure. I really do. And then and they might think I'm a sucker for spending so much time, and energy and even money for sometimes on this club, but to each his own, of course. But I think that's the challenge, and that's why this market is never dull and never void of opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the players are dumb, right? I think they I look at a team that I'd want to, replicate. I mean, the Rangers are an easy answer, but they got a bunch of players for free, right? They got Panarin for free. Basically, they got Fox for free because they wanted to play there. But I look at a team like New Jersey, right? You look at New Jersey where they 2017-18, they were a playoff team.
Yeah.
And then they were pretty bad the next year. And then they tanked, right? They won 19 games in that shortened season. They won 28 games the year before. And then even last season, they won 27 hockey games. And what do they get out of that? They get Jack Hughes. They acquire a bunch of young good players, and now they're third in the league by points percentage, right? And just by points. They won 41 games this year, while the Canucks have won, 26, right? I think the players know that, like, how it works. And if you say, yeah, we're going to be like, hey, we're bad this year, but we get a really good player that's going to step in the lineup. And then maybe one more bad year, we get one more good player. And then we start, filling in the pieces around him, like, New Jersey has done. But it's that middle part, right, where the Canucks have been, where they're picking, 9th, 10th, 11th, that sort of area. And they seem like they're probably going to be around there again, right? 6, 7, 8. That, you're getting NHL caliber hockey players that you can sort of get you're not getting stars, right? Because stars don't move in the NHL. They just don't, right? There's been all the talk about, Austin Matthews is going to go back to Arizona eventually or whatever. Like, probably not. Most stars stay with the teams they're on for their careers, right? It's just sort of the way it is. You don't see many, Sidney Crosby's been where he's been forever. McDavid's been where he's been forever. Joe Sakic was in Colorado forever. Like, all these guys that were in one place for the majority of their career. Connor Bedard might, he's from Vancouver and he won't get drafted by Vancouver, but you think the year he turns UFA is going to come here? Probably not, even as much as we might like to think that. It just doesn't happen all that much.
No, everything you said is right. And especially the way the contracts are set up in the NHL, where technically if you play your cards right, usually you go with a 3-year contract, ELC, a 3-year contract, and then the 6 years, and then you have the decision then to either sign for a year and then let him walk, or 6 year, whatever. But Matthew Tkachuk is probably the only player that in recent memory has, in essence, forced the team's hand. And I don't worry, and I don't think hockey experts are worried that Petey's going to do it here or that it's going to become rampant. That was the exception as opposed to the norm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Wow. The only thing we didn't talk about was the Luke Schenn trade. Luke Schenn for a third.
Yeah, what do you think?
It had to be done.
Yeah. Actually, and the only one that broke while you're gone, and you're probably happy that I don't know, I can't speak for you, but a minor trade, Lazar to New Jersey.
Right. Yeah. For a fourth, right?
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah, fine with that too. I mean, I liked the Lazar signing a lot. $1 million for 3 years, and based on the player he had been the past year, that seemed like a great deal. Because if he was just going to be a staple on your fourth line for $1 million for 3 years, that's great, and he's going to be a solid impact. Wasn't as good here as he was previously, and just didn't fit. So
it's too bad.
You get out of it. You get out of the $1 million for the last 2 years. You pick up a fourth, which is great. No real qualms here.
Yeah, and I think as we wind up here, I know one thing you and I have talked about, and we've seen it now, is this management team is not afraid to move off of guys. I don't want to say they don't like, but they're not afraid to move off of guys. Lockwood gone, right? Stillman gone, Lazar gone. So as Schenn, so that's my point. It's not guys they don't like, but they're not afraid to actually move guys. Horvat, obviously. So look at that. We've just named like a third of the team, almost 5 or 6 skaters that are started the season with the team, except for Lockwood. But that's a lot.
Yep, completely. And it's a little scary, right? Because you look at these guys as pieces of the team for a long time, but you look at a guy like Besser, and it's like, I'm still scared of a Besser trade because he feels like he could really make an impact somewhere. And if that's not here, that sucks. But I worry that they're not going to get the value that maybe they should. Same with Connor Garland, right? It's like it's sunk cost fallacy, which I'm usually very against. But that first round pick that we traded for him, Dylan Guenther, basically, I would hate to see us trade Connor Garland for a third and just to get rid of the contract and him go over and put up 65 points somewhere, right?
Yeah. It's true. And that's the thing, obviously we all have our opinions on how the team should do it. I see it in the chat tonight, which is great. A lot of great conversation in the chat, but I'm not trying to take the easy way out and say, it's a lot harder to be a owner, or not owner, GM than we can think, and not everyone can do. And we don't know what's happening in the room, but I I'm confident that they are trying to improve the team. I'm confident that they have their
Mhm.
big spreadsheets and whiteboards and they're doing everything they can. But I also think it's very hard to move money and find money in the NHL this year. So if the rumored OEL buyout happens, I'll be very surprised and quite impressed, frankly, if that happens. But I guess we got all summer to talk about those kind of things.
Yeah, and it will be a lot of summer talking about stuff like that for sure. um, Folks, next week, like we said, we'll figure it out. It will probably be a Tuesday show, and it will feel like it's 1 hour earlier because the clocks do go forward on Sunday.
Oh, I forgot about
Um,
that.
yes, I'm looking forward to it because that starts to mean afternoon golf back in the mix.
The only negative is we lose an hour of sleep, right?
On one night. It's a weekend though. I can just sleep in.
Oh yeah, good point.
All right, folks. If you enjoyed this episode, you can rewind back to the beginning. I know it's late though, so maybe tomorrow morning you want to listen to the podcast on your commute or just wherever you are, or of course you can just save this on YouTube and watch it later. As all, I mean, Clay, any parting words tonight?
Parker, thank you for making the effort. This is an hour later than usual for you. You're on vacation, which is, I think, the bigger point. And we still want to hear you bust some rhymes with that dope mic that you have.
That's not going to happen.
As for me, yeah, in my familiar, this is my second place where I stream from. Is actually my third behind my car. But yeah, I'm happy that we were able to pop on. I'm happy that we were able to make it work because we knew coming off an exciting win, even if it's not what some fans wanted, and especially an eventful trade deadline week, we knew we wanted to bring a show to you guys. But you're right. Next week, if you have hockey, and I know it's my lovely wife's birthday, we're probably calling it now that is likely going to be Tuesday, March the 14th that we do our show.
Yeah. I think I have hockey Monday and Wednesday. So Tuesday would make
perfect
sense.
And it will be a post game.
Yes. The Canucks play at 7 p.m. against the Dallas Stars. Should be a loss, hopefully. Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Sounds good. And then lastly, any predictions? So how many games we got this week? We got
3 Ducks Wednesday, Sens Saturday, Stars Tuesday. I'm going for a nice 1-2.
I'm going really against those guys. Oh,
I'm hoping they beat. I'm hoping they lose. I'm hoping they lose to Anaheim because Anaheim is in the race there. Yeah. I think they beat the Sens. Yeah. And then they probably lose to Dallas.
Okay, I'm going triple ones. 1-1-1.
Also fair. All right, folks. Have a good night. We will hit like while you're still here. Make sure you're subscribed. But other than that, have a lovely rest of your week, and we'll see you later.